Hello everyone, this is Jenna Ryan and I am your self-love life coach, and I talk about how to love yourself, how to heal from codependency, how to overcome trauma and learn to be a whole person who is able to love God and love your fellow man and love yourself. And that's what I do here. So welcome to this podcast. Today I want to talk about using distance to keep yourself intact. I don't know the title, but it's going to be something along the lines of using distancing techniques. I've come to the realization that when you have codependent habits, codependent relationship patterns, you are not adept at using distancing to your advantage. This is because in a codependent dynamic, in a codependent family, distance is not allowed. The family of a codependent is enmeshed. People do not have boundaries. They don't know their rights. They're not taught autonomy. They're not taught separateness. A person who has codependency is taught to merge, to enmesh, to become one with others instead of maintaining their separateness. Codependency is destructive to true intimacy and relational happiness and self-protection. It's the opposite of self-protection. It's the opposite of staying in your lane. When you're enmeshed with someone, that means you both share the same thoughts. You're not allowed to have your own thoughts, so to speak. You put their needs ahead of yours. And you complain if your needs aren't met. And then you're left with resentment that builds up. And it just wreaks havoc on your life. Whenever someone is enmeshed with you, it leaves you confused about who you are. You have that pattern and habit of not following your own intuition, of putting your needs last. Let's say you need to spend time in prayer and meditation, but they need to talk on the phone. They need to have your attention. So you forego your needs to meet their needs. And let's say you like to do crafts and hobbies and spend time just getting connected with yourself. But there they are. They want to come over. They want to talk. They have needs. And sometimes in a codependent relationship, these needs, they make it like it's your need. So they may call you and talk about you and allow you to speak or encourage you to speak, or you may be led to speak and share your issues or help them with theirs. But nevertheless, you're still being enmeshed because this is your time that you usually, go get your hair done or whatever. But you can't think in a codependent relationship because one party in this relationship, which is the dominant person who is controlling, calling all the shots, overriding boundaries, this person won't allow it. They have to have complete control, all your attention, and it is very destructive. And so what I want to talk about is using distancing. This can also be good to use when you are or you think you're being love bombed, when you have, concerns about someone who's calling every day. You're concerned about someone who's moving too quickly, someone who is acting like they're closer to you than they are. They're rushing into a deep friendship or a deep relationship before you've even gotten to know them, or in a way that's not natural. And if you've learned to notice love bombing, using distancing can protect you from people that want to displace your I am They want to come in and take you off course. They want to de-self you. They want to take yourself and they want to use all your goodie for their benefit and then pretend like it's you're the one who's doing it. It's kind of crooked. It's very twisted. And so using distancing can really help you to create a safe space. I like to think of it as a moat around your house. You know, there is a place around you that needs protection. There's such a thing as being too close. There's an area around you that you've got to protect. You may not have been taught to protect this area or to have a buffer around your true self, around your needs and all of these things. You may not be used to having a buffer. You may not be used to setting boundaries to maintain this safe space. But let me tell you now that you have the right to control who can get close to you and who cannot. You don't have to drop everything for anyone. You don't have to respond to anyone within a certain amount of time. Automatically, if you've been raised in an environment where you didn't have rights or you didn't realize your rights, you may feel the need to respond to everything right when they need you. This can actually be a very good trait for a salesperson, but it's not good for normal relationships. It's not good to drop everything for someone in everyday life. It's important to have a buffer. This buffer protects you in numerous ways. First of all, a buffer of distancing, the ability to distance comfortably, gives you a buffer and gives you the opportunity to reach within, to feel within, to experience your own identity, your own processes, your own emotions, and it gives you space to exist so that you can make decisions and choices that are best for you. It's a buffer, okay? It's a moat. It's a protective zone that no one can trespass without your permission. And I would like to say that this should be your zone. It should be your area. And there's certain, there is such a thing as too close. And you don't let people get too close too soon. And even if you're in a very deep, intimate relationship, that relationship, that if it's healthy and truly connected, it will be respective of your buffers. It will respect your buffers. Someone who's codependent, someone who's narcissistic will railroad your buffers. They will bamboozle your buffer zone. They will steamroll you until you are used as their tool. So it becomes important to have that buffer area. Another thing that this buffer area does for you is it protects you from toxic relationships and toxic people. Because if a narcissist will test you to see if you are someone who will be good for them, if you are someone who will readily meet their needs, who will readily hand over yourself, because they're very lazy. And if you're going to give a fight, if you're going to put up a fight, if you're not just going to hand everything over to them and let them do their bidding, then they're going to move on to the next person. But if you have, a fence around you, if you have a buffer zone, if you have a knowledge of your rights, if you have internal locus of control, they're going to know that immediately when you use distancing techniques. I'm not talking about games at all. Games are a totally different thing. Sometimes a toxic person will use distancing and the silent treatment in order to harm others and in order to extract additional narcissistic supply. Or people will use emotional cutoff because they don't have skills to stay attached and they are avoidant with their relationships. I'm not talking about unhealthy distancing. I'm talking about healthy detachment from the emotional needs of others and the ability to maintain your own inner bond with yourself. Inner bonding. Dr. Martha talks about that. Inner bonding. You maintain your internal bond. You stay with yourself and you don't allow someone to come and take all of your thoughts, feelings, and take you over. So this becomes a skill, and it becomes a very valuable skill to help you to determine who is healthy and who is not. If the narcissist is going to have some techniques for deciding who they can abuse, then you can have techniques for deciding and finding out who will respect your boundaries. So with great intentions, with the best intentions, setting a buffer zone around yourself by using distancing techniques is healthy. Distancing techniques that I think are valid to point out right now are things like not returning calls immediately, even though your first, not every call, I'm not talking about every time, I'm just talking about especially in newer friendships, relationships, or old, not always being available. A lot of times, or if you've gone through trauma, you may feel like you have to be available, Johnny on the spot, or else that person will abandon you because you may have some abandonment wounds. So instead of taking your space that you need and taking care of you, you are available 24/7, Johnny on the spot. You tell me where to, you ask me to jump and I ask how high. That kind of over-giving, over-sharing, over-providing is very painful. And it's not healthy, and we don't have to do that. Okay, so I got off track here. Okay, so what I'm saying is distancing. Not answering calls back immediately. That it may mean that, it may not. Not being available for everything at all times. And then start to think about the people in your life and who is taking the most of your time. Who in your life right now is really absorbing a lot of your time. And ask yourself if maybe a step back, maybe some time to reflect wouldn't be healthy. And also finding out if the people around you respect when you need time. Someone who's disrespectful or who is toxic, they will not like it whenever you don't call them back or whenever you don't do exactly as they want you to do. And they will begin to attack you. If they don't, they'll gaslight you, they'll attack you, they'll accuse you of doing things that are not within their best interest, and they'll claim it's God or something like that. They'll go nuts. If you're not there to provide and they're used to you providing and they're used to people just bowing down and giving them whatever they want, then they'll go nuts. Either they'll leave you alone if they're new to you, like if they're trying to sell you an MLM, they'll either leave you alone, which is good, go, get away from me, or they'll go bananas, especially if they're used to giving. And if they go bananas, that's their bananas. It's not your bananas. It's not your problem, because you have to understand that you have a buffer and it's beautiful. And it's very important to maintain your calm, non-reactive self through the buffer zone. When you're first starting to heal and learning these new skills, having a buffer will feel very uncomfortable. And if you create a buffer with someone that has always had access to you, then that may feel uncomfortable at first. However, you will find that as you create this buffer, the reason it feels uncomfortable is because it's foreign. And there's also a bit of fear. Fear that you're not going to have that friend anymore, or fear that the needs you think that they are meeting, or they've, manipulated you into thinking that they are meeting. Fear that those needs won't be met, or they'll abandon you, some sort of just automatic relational process that's going off. So you have to sit through the anxiety of that, even if it's small, large, whatever it is. Sit through the anxiety and being able to sit with yourself and be alone, or find other things to occupy your time, things that are nourishing, things that replenish your soul, like spending time in nature, gardening, doing yoga, having coffee with an acquaintance, whatever it is that helps you to feel whole while you're experiencing the anxiety of creating a buffer zone is healthy and will help your body and your system, your emotional self, to get accustomed to creating a buffer zone. A place where people cannot tread. A place where your rights are upheld. A place where people are taught how to treat you, because you're training them from day one. Someone does not always get to have access to you. Sometimes you have to step back for your own well-being, for your own health. And it could mean not returning every text, not getting involved in every argument that they want you to get involved in, not focusing on them, not focusing on someone else too much, but actually taking a step back and focusing on yourself and creating that buffer, experiencing the dissonance that occurs when you have that buffer until you get good at it, and then reaching back out or staying connected if that's what you want to do. And this is good for you with healthy people. It's good for you with toxic people. It's good for you in all ways, because you have a right to grant access, and you have rights, and other people think that they're entitled to every part of you. There will be people that think that they are entitled, and if you're not aware that they're not, then you may give over way too much of yourself. So distancing techniques will help you to do this. And it's uncomfortable sometimes in the beginning, but learning to just push them back. Okay, and whenever you're creating distancing, you do not have to, you want to be assertive. Assertiveness is not explaining why, and it's not being rude. It's neutral. It's assertiveness. It's knowing that you have a right to have this zone. And you don't want to explain to them that you have a zone. Because if you're having to explain to someone that you have a buffer area, I would think that you're processing with the wrong person. The only person that needs explaining is your internal dialogue. You and yourself. I have a buffer. I don't have to tell people about my buffer. I don't have to tell people that I'm doing this. You may want to, but you have to be careful emotionally processing with somebody who may be toxic and may be over in your lane. And here you are, as with codependent internal structure, you're processing with somebody who's too close to you. Like if you're processing about creating a buffer for yourself with somebody who is in your lane and you're trying to buffer away from, they're the wrong person to talk about the buffer with. Like that's way, if you're talking to the person that you're trying to buffer and distance from for now to get some space about the buffer and your need to have the buffer, then that means you're talking to the wrong person, because they just need an assertive understanding of where your line is. And it's not rude, it's not mean, it's always kind. It's always kind. because you don't want that on you. You want your own kindness to exude from you. And then if they have a reaction or they don't like it, then they can be the one to deal with their emotions. And you deal with yours in your buffer zone. So don't be afraid to take time out. Don't be afraid to wait to text. Don't be afraid to, if somebody tries to pull you into an argument you don't really want to deal with right now. Maybe it's an argument you may want to deal with, may want to have. But right now you just don't have to do it. Right now, there's nothing so pressing that right now you have to answer, respond, even to set a boundary. Like there's been times when I've had the experience that even when I'm setting a boundary, it needs to be done right now, right when they need it. But it doesn't. Sometimes you can set a boundary within and your actions will speak the boundary. The distancing shows the boundary. People who are toxic will not like this because distancing is not something that someone who has no boundaries is going to be able to do. It takes skill, it takes hard work, it takes the ability to be uncomfortable sometimes in the beginning. But as you become more skilled at using distancing, and what it is it's emotional detachment. Emotional detachment, where you're detaching from them and you're connecting within. Very, very healthy. And staying detached so that you're not all reactive and in the uproar of the drama triangle with them. You're backed off. And it's emotional detachment, and it's so healthy to be able to do that. And I kind of liken it to a little mini no contact. I mean, it's mini because you're gonna open up the door again when you're ready. So it's not a whole, but whenever you ask, if you want to know what it feels like to distance, it kind of reminds me of going no contact. If you have the skill of going no contact, then this is the next step, being able to draw near and back away. Draw near and back away. So going full on no contact or even full on emotional cutoff is a step towards this level of being able to get close. So I would say like phase 1 is you cannot distance at all. You can't go no contact. So you've got a lot of work to do. That's possible to do, so don't be afraid. And then step 2 is being able to emotionally disconnect, emotional cutoff, okay? Even though that's crazy extreme, you are keeping yourself safe in a way. And then the next step is emotional detachment. Now you're getting healthy. The pendulum is not so strong on one side or the other. Emotional detachment is healthy. And then being able to distance and draw near is perfection. That's where you really want to be. So those are the skills you need to have. So emotionally detaching kind of reminds me of mini no contact. It's kind of the same skill set. If you can go no contact, then you've learned that you can live without that person and be happy and secure, and it's not as bad as you thought. You're not going to die. You're not going to be abandoned. That you can't be abandoned because you're an adult and you can take care of yourself. And so you're very healthy. You have a much more healthy ability once you can actually go no contact. And then you go no contact in little ways. Okay, because here, think of it this way. If you're not able to emotionally disconnect, emotionally detach, then they're going to be taking all of you, and eventually you're going to run out of juice. You're going to run out of steam. You're going to have adrenal tiredness. You're going to be tired. It's going to be very difficult to function with someone who's taken you over and doesn't respect your boundaries and you haven't been able to distance from. It becomes very difficult to exist in that kind of world. So you're eventually going to have to go no contact anyway. So you might as well go now, because eventually it's going to happen anyway. So it's like we become so afraid, if I let go, if I detach, I'm afraid I will lose this person. Well, ultimately, if you don't detach, you're going to lose yourself, and eventually you're going to have to get away from the person because they're going to take you over. So it becomes the same thing. One way or the other, you can win through distancing and really calibrating what is comfortable to you. How close is too close? What are your rights regarding your own time? What are your rights? What do you want to highlight? What do you want to maintain? Where is your emotional buffer zone? Where's the place where you can get connected with your true self and make positive decisions that are in your best interest? This is not about abandoning others, because taking care of yourself is vital. If you don't take care of yourself, you cannot take care of anyone else. So someone coming into your buffer zone and not backing up when it's time shows you that you're dealing with someone who doesn't have boundaries, and eventually it will hurt you. So don't be afraid to have a buffer. Don't be afraid to walk away, to take space, to ask for space, to defend your space, to boundary for space. And don't be afraid to hold a boundary. And you decide when you set it. You decide. So if they are coming at you, wanting you to sign up for their MLM, and you don't want to, you may not even feel like talking about it right now. Then you might have to say, I got to go. I'll call you back. I got to go. I'll call you back. Oh, I got to go. I'll call you right back. Or I'll call you later. Or that may not be true, but you may say, oh, I got to go. Can you call me later? And then you can decide whether you want to set the boundary whenever they call you, or, so you get to determine all of these things. You have a lot of power to dictate who gets close to you, who doesn't, who is safe. And meanwhile, you have the obligation to yourself to protect yourself. And you don't want to be in fear of abandonment. You don't want to be obligated to talk to people. You don't want to be, guilty. You don't want to feel guilty. Sometimes there will be relationships and times in your life where you have an obligation to do things, but those need to be at the bare minimum, unless it's work related. I mean, if somebody's paying me, then that's a little bit different, but you still need a buffer even when someone's paying you. And you need to make sure that everything you talk about is what you want to talk about. Because other people will come in and try to get you to talk about what they want you to talk about. And really, it's confusing if they get too close and you don't know how to have a solid buffer around you. So that's what I have to say today about distancing. This is Jenna Ryan, and please like, comment. Comments are good. Subscribe. I know that I think the algorithm is not showing my podcasts, so this is only getting to you if you really want to hear it. And make sure that you click the notification bell to get notifications of new information that I'm sharing. Okay, until next time, this is Jenna Ryan, and I will talk to you soon.